This is from Hockey Canada. Forwards Ridley Gregg and defensemen Owen Power and Caden Gooley headline Canada's 35-player selection camp roster for the 2022 World Junior Hockey Championship. Hockey Canada will choose its 25-player roster following their camp, December 9th to the 12th in Calgary. The tournament will be held Canada opens the tourney December 26th in Edmonton against the Czechs. Red Deer is the official co-host city. So where do we go? Canada will take 3 goalies to Edmonton to camp. So Brett Brochu of the London Knights, Dylan Guerin of the Kamloops Blazers, and Sebastian Cossa of the Edmonton Oil Kings will all represent Canada. Gooley of the Prince Albert Raiders was a member of last year's Team Canada, which lost 2-0 to the USA in the World Junior Final. Manitoba Moose center Cole Perfetti, Mum Spaghetti, who was named to this year's selection camp roster, was also on that team. Owen Power from the University of Michigan has already won World's Men's Gold with Canada in June in Riga, Latvia. He was named to the selection camp roster last year, but the Wolverines didn't release him. Ridley Gregg, whom we all know quite well of the Brandon Wheat Kings, a first-round pick of the Ottawa Senators, has 12 goals, 11 assists in 16 games this year for the Wheaties. And if I may, I think he's the best player in the league, not named Connor Bedard, which, speaking of, the Wonder Kid, 16-year-old Connor Bedard and Kingston Frontenac forward Shane Wright were also named selection camp invites. Ottawa 67's head coach Dave Cameron will coach Team Canada. They will play a pre-tournament exhibition game December 19th against Switzerland, December 20th against Sweden, and December 22nd against Russia. So debate at will, Canada. This is the selection camp roster for what? In just over a week's time in Calgary, they're all going to get together. And all I want to talk about is Connor Bedard at 16 years of age being on the roster. That might be a great poll question, Moose. Should he be? Well, you know my answer. I thought he should have been on the team last year, especially when they needed some goal scoring in the gold medal final. So I'm all excited about this roster. How about you?
I'm excited about it too. And we heard, TSN talking about it last night, that it doesn't look like any of the NHL players will come back. That includes Cole Sillinger. That includes Seth Jarvis. So it doesn't look like they'll be released, although there's time for that still to happen. They're not expecting any of those guys to come back. So this is the roster. These are the guys who are going to go to camp and make up this group. So it's a good group, I think. Cole Perfetti is going to lead that way. Ridley Gregg should have a significant role. Caden Gooley. And then the Connor Bedard, Shane Wright. Obviously, that's the youth movement and the future. I think it's great. I really do. There's the roster. I think it's awesome. I think Bedard getting an opportunity. I think it was going to happen to camp. Will he have a spot on this roster? I don't know if he'll be one of the 12 or 13 forwards, but he's got a really good shot to make it. And I think he deserves to at least be on this camp roster and be there skating with Team Canada.
There's the list. Thank you, producer Clarke, for putting it up. And we'll be debating that as the program goes along today. That's the breaking news today. Canada's World Junior invite list announced, and it includes Connor Bedard and Shane Wright. I see a lot of people are very upset about the Team Canada list for the World Juniors, the invite camp in Calgary. And for instance, Dan, the Jets fan, writing from Winnipeg, he says, I'm surprised that only Carson Lampos was selected from the ice. The veteran forward, Cole Perfetti, will again make the team again. Go, Canada, go. From Jordan Ewart watching on YouTube, it's almost embarrassing. No Savoie, no Clarke, no Othman. My cousin Christine in Medicine Hat watching says, have a little faith in those choosing our team. So Jordan goes on to say, I'm Bedard's biggest fan. Bought season tickets just to see him play, but someone has to tell me how he makes this list over Savoie today. Well, I don't think we're going based off statistics. I don't think. Jennifer from the Four Seasons, Jen's watching. She says, good morning, everyone. Congrats to Connor for the invite to the juniors. So that is why we label it Canada's daytime sports talk show, because you knew that the World Junior camp invite list would get people hot and bothered. And you're following the dub pretty closely. Clarke had some thoughts here on no Savoies. Nobody named Savoie being invited to the Team Canada list. Connor Bedard was in the under-18 camp in August, but not the under-20 camp. I've gone on record as saying I still believe Connor should have played last year at 15. And everybody thought that I was all wet, and that's fine. I'm used to it. But I don't have a problem with this list. But you knew, Darren, that somebody would. You knew somebody would.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When a top player from your team doesn't get picked, that's an issue. And I understand the Winnipeg thing because they're the best team in the country. So you want to have a little bit more representation, no doubt. But the roster top to bottom is going to be good for Canada. We're going to have one of the coaches from that Team Canada group on our show this week, so we'll be able to ask him directly what went into these players, why certain people were left off the roster. So that will be really, really great to be able to have that type of coverage. But yeah, we'll dissect this roster. Look, if they win gold, it'll be the best roster assembled. They made it the right choices. If they don't win gold, then we're going to look to all the mistakes that they made when choosing the roster. So we won't really know until the dust settles in early January.
Pinks, when they hand out the medals, you mean?
Yeah.
Of course. Isn't that always the way? Pinks writes in, one of our P1s, says it's literally the Bermuda Triangle today, with Rod in the east, Darren in the west, and Regina at the top. What's it at the top of? Eric Thomas watching on YouTube says, have a fun time here in Langley today, Darren. That's where Darren is, by the way, at the campus of Trinity Western College, home of the Spartans. That's where one of Wally Buono's daughters went to school. I think Christy might have gone there and played for this. Yeah, go ahead.
You wouldn't believe the messages that I'm getting from people all over the West Coast that are welcoming me to the West Coast. And people who are said, you're out here. I hope to see you at this game. I hope to see you at that game. I hope to run into you here, there. People I've run into in Saskatchewan, all over the place. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. And I'm looking forward to being here for the rest of the week.
By the way, Stu Grimson coming up in hour 1. Ben Josephson from Trinity Western coming up in hour 2. Named to Canada's men's volleyball squad for the Olympics as the head coach. So he's going to be leaving Trinity Western here before too long. Dan, the Jets fan from Winnipeg, writes in regarding the World Junior roster. He says, Dave Cameron, the head coach, had a good analogy for picking the players. It's like a bag of golf clubs. You have some drivers and some putters. Yeah, and I'll take it one step further. You got some irons in there. You probably have a ball retriever in there. You probably have a head cover that's a furry animal-looking thing. Like, it's everything. And because of my years working in junior hockey, 17 years, everybody just assumes that you take the 20 best players in the country. And that's not the case. Everybody just assumes the NFL picks the best players out of the CFL and signs them in the offseason. That's not the case. They're looking for different kinds of players. And for years and years and years, Hockey Canada always had, which I'm sure you've heard this, Darren, what did they call it? A ghost depth chart or a ghost list, I believe is what they called it.
Right.
And they want this type of player to fit the third line left wing spot. And they want this type of player to fill the third defensive pair right D spot. This type of player. And they plug in all these holes. That's the way they were doing it 20 years ago, and I think that's the way they're still doing it. And Connor Bedard and Shane Wright go in terms of their name. Like, Connor Bedard struggling statistically, if he is struggling, that didn't matter to Hockey Canada. And we knew this. We said this a few weeks ago. Hockey Canada can see how good the kid is. It's not about numbers. But there's my diatribe on how Hockey Canada is not going to take the 20 best players in the country. They just don't do that. Why do we get sucked into this every year at this time?
Well, they have to come together as a team, and they need to all play a role. And you're right. We need to have defensemen. I say we because we're Canadian. We need to have two big defensemen who can log a ton of minutes. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the most skilled player. It's going to be the hardest shooting player, but they need to log a ton of really tough defensive zone minutes. So you get two guys that can do that. But then you might need a really high-end skilled guy who can play on the power play and do these other things that those two guys who are going to log all your minutes maybe can't do. You need guys on a third or fourth line that can provide some energy. Maybe not the most finesse or we're going to put a bunch of pucks in that, but can bring you some energy. And guess what? from every coach, Barrett will tell you this, from Barrett to Mike Babcock to Todd Johnston around the Canada West in hockey, they all have different philosophies on what they want that roster to look like. So Dave Cameron has his idea of what he wants Team Canada to look like, and that's why he's assembling the players he's assembling. Just like you mentioned with the golf clubs, you know, some golfers want to have more wedges because they play the short game. Other guys just want to hit it far. So, you know, this is Dave Cameron's team, and he's got to choose the players to fit the team he wants to coach.
Right. And the pressure. Ooh, doggy.
Yeah.
The pressure of coaching Canada's World Junior team is immense. I'd like to talk to Dave Cameron about that. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.